reggaeton travels. It travels far and also fast. In the previous season, we talked about how these infectious rhythms and beats from the Caribbean started sprawling to other nations. Since the mid-2000s, reggaeton has been at the core of any dance floor in Latin America. And slowly, it has been conquering hearts and minds in other non-Spanish-speaking countries. After that, with the help of the Latin American diaspora that has been making us proud in pretty much every corner of the United States, reggaeton can be heard everywhere in North America. It's on the radio. We dance to it in block parties, clubs. It's even here in podcasts. It makes us yearn for home or connects us to the home of generations past through fun and sexy beats that sing to us in different languages, actually. In episode 6 of this season, we talked about how, with the help of Despacito, reggaeton also became wildly popular in the United States. But it wasn't only because of superstars like Daddy Yankee, Justin Bieber, and Luis Fonsi. Currently in the US, there are independent cultural and community leaders who are pushing the boundaries of what the reggaeton scene in the United States sounds like. They grew up between two cultures and two languages, sometimes in a land that they felt estranged with. But it was through music that they found something beautiful, pure, and true that made them connect to their roots, both recent and ancestral. Latinidad, through music and beyond, goes way back. But when it connects with reggaeton, it wasn't that long ago, and it thrived because of the hard work of communicators and artists that are also immigrants. During this season of El Flow, we have talked about huge names in the industry and how they changed the game. But today, we'll focus on the people who are slowly but steadily making Latino culture and music grow in the US and convince everybody out there that we know how to dance and, of course, to have a good time. One of them is an artist making bilingual reggaeton, of which we'll hear about later on. But let's start with our first guest. Having started some years ago, she's the leading voice that has been steadily growing in numbers, relevance, and ambition. Her name is Catelina Exelston, but you might know her a little bit better as her public character, La Gata.
I am the reggaeton historian and executive producer behind the critically acclaimed platform Reggaeton con la Gata. After studying reggaeton intensively and the Latin music industry intensively, I've created the first bilingual platform storytelling the history and analysis of reggaeton, and the first podcast to do so with Perreo 101.
We sat down to have a chat with her because she does something that we do as well. She takes reggaeton seriously and does so for an English-speaking audience. But her love for this music started way back.
I have home videos of me dancing to Música Underground of like PR and El General and Chicho Mang when I was like a baby. But consciously, when I said, oh no, I love this music, it always goes back to this one memory I have. O sea, there are several, but this one in particular, I was at a quince and Dale Don was playing by Don Omar. And I remember hearing it and saying, oh, that's fire. And running to the dance floor to dance with my cousin's best friend. And my mom, dándome un boche después, she like scolded me after. She's like, we don't dance this. Las mujeres sanas no bailan esto. Like, you know, good girls don't dance this. And of course, that made me run in that direction all the more. So.
La Gata is a first-generation American with Panamanian and Jamaican roots. She's one of millions of Americans with Latin American roots that have grown up in the US loving reggaeton with their hearts. However, she's one of a few who've taken a serious interest in analyzing it and making it grow. In this episode, we'll talk about how two bilingual and bicultural Latinos are contributing to the development of reggaeton in the US to help it grow as an unstoppable force that is larger than life. I am Lilia Luciano, and this is El Flow, Season 2, Episode 11, Reggaeton Up North. Stay tuned because we'll be right back with more of La Gata. During this season, we've talked to many Latinas who have been either reporting on or doing research in reggaeton. We talked with Petra Rivera Rido and Vanessa J. Diaz, two professors who joined forces to create the first serious social investigations on Bad Bunny. We also talked with Hasta Abajo Project, a group of women who are helping compile an organized reggaeton archive in Puerto Rico, or Leila Cobo, who wrote a book on how Despacito stood out in a long trajectory of Latin music in the US. All of them have become leaders in their particular field. Catalina Exelston Lagata, who we heard in the previous segment, started dancing to reggaeton since she was very, very young, despite going against her mom's wishes. And she's now created a pretty remarkable name for herself. Her podcast, Perreo 101, started in 2019 and traced the history of reggaeton in English, with interviews with artists, musicologists, and fans. She had studied communication in college and had already done serious research into reggaeton. She interviewed Teo Calderon for her thesis about racism in music, and her podcast has taken her very far. As a bilingual reggaeton historian and critic, she's collaborated with numerous media outlets like Harper's Bazaar, Telemundo, and HuffPost. She also worked with Netflix for Neon, a series with Alex Dean and Emma Ferreira about a group of friends who moved to Miami to pursue a career in reggaeton, as well as others. These and other commercial projects by Lagata have taken reggaeton to many listeners in the US who did not grow up listening to this genre. But also, we have to give credit to the talented communicators who passionately dissect reggaeton in podcasts like Perreo 101 by Lagata. Because reggaeton is now a strengthened movement in the United States. With more and more reggaeton artists touring North America, we asked Lagata what recent concerts she's been to in the US that have blown her mind.
I had the joy of watching Mike Towers in November here in Boston. And of course, everybody's obsessed with his song La La. And I am myself, I would call that song the song of the year for 2023, definitely.
But there was something that caught Lagata's attention. There was no opener for Mike Towers. He was touring solo.
And at first I was like, Mike Towers, why don't you have someone opening for you? Why isn't anybody touring with you? You know, like, what's going on, sir? Like, why? You have so many features. You have Arcángel, you have all these big artists. What's going on? And then I watch him and I say, oh, I get it. He wanted that moment himself for his fans.
Mike Towers had 22 live shows in the US in 2023 as part of Vive la Tuya, No la Mía tour. But it wasn't only him. Artists like Maluma, Becky G, Ile, Anuel AA, Rauw Alejandro, Karol G, almost all the big names now include big cities in the US as part of their tours. Not only that, but Karol G was awarded Woman of the Year in the Billboard Awards 2024. We gotta give it up for La Bichota. But it's not all about the big names. We're also interested in those up-and-coming artists that are starting to make some noise in the US. We asked Lagata what new producers we should be paying attention to that are bringing fresh beats to the scene.
I wouldn't call him new per se. I'm very excited for all the work that Mr. Nice Guy is putting out. He works very tightly with Rauw Alejandro. I like his work a lot. Shout out to Jeremy Ayala, Daddy Yankee's son. De lo mío personal. He's very talented. He's a platinum award-winning producer. You know, talent can't be bought. He did that. So I'm excited to see what he does next. I have my eye on him.
Jeremy is Daddy Yankee's second son with his lifelong wife, Miredi Gonzalez. He was born in 1998. He's still got big shoes to fill, but already he's produced tracks for artists like Bad Jal, Mike Towers, Dookie, and Bryant Mayers. Lagata has been in the scene for so long, learning from all the big names in the industry, that it comes as no surprise that we'll be listening to her own material very soon.
I love this music so much that me metí in Fruity Loops, and I've been in the studio transparently for the past 4 years. I've been recording music for the past 4 years. It's been a very humbling process.
Her podcast, Perreo 101, has evolved into a touring party that has also had her as a DJ in the past, alongside local DJs such as Agent DMZ and Dana Lu.
I'm excited. This is all very, very new, and I'm very excited for it.
And like we said in the beginning of the season, this is all part of a recent trend in reggaeton that elevates female talent.
I love how much more women are stepping onto the scene. Reggaeton, of course, de los 2000s, we couldn't really enjoy it out loud. It was very taboo. I was a baby. Let me not even include myself in that. But I saw it, right? And growing up as a teenager, it was still taboo. And it was taboo because, of course, Latin America, traditionally Latinos, we have this attitude that women can't possibly enjoy things that are sexy. We can't possibly enjoy ourselves sexually, find liberation in ourselves through sex or things that celebrate sex or be sex positive. We must save the women, poor women, this outdated attitude and idea, right? And so, ¿qué te digo? I'm excited to see how many women are stepping onto the scene.
Because reggaeton is an odyssey through space and time that brings us memories. For many artists that are still on the rise, like her, it means a life-changing opportunity.
This music saved my life. And the manners of which it saved my life, I don't think that sort of journey or experience can be compared to anything at all.
This identity can become a labyrinth for many first-generation migrants in the U.S., feeling lost between two languages and a culture that's not easy to assimilate with. Stay with us. We'll be right back with an artist who left everything behind and placed a bet to get fully immersed in the world of reggaeton. Catalina Exelsen has been in the front row making noise for the expansion of reggaeton in the US with her many different projects. But she's not the only bicultural and bilingual Latina who's out there making that kind of noise, putting her culture in the mainstream. There's a new generation of musicians who've been creating reggaeton in both English and Spanish. They start with dreams and end up on stages. They're working hard to write history and revolutionize the genre. And they may be hidden in plain sight.
My name is Chico Curlyhead. I am an artist who makes music in Spanish and English. Call it Spanglish if you want to call it Spanglish.
We interviewed this young artist from his home in Atlanta, Georgia. Life and fate ended up putting Chico Curlyhead there, thousands of miles away from where he was born. His music is sweet and mellow, but also an upbeat and fun combination of different genres that end up sounding authentically like reggaeton. He can blend rap, pop en español, and R&B with lyrics in both languages to sound a little bit like this.
Yo soy sincero, yeah, I'll give you my time. Yeah, I ain't got the money, but I'll get us someone. Hey, como te digo, no soy rico, pero fue como fai. Hey, yeah, I ain't rich, but yeah, I'll get us someone. Hey.
That song you heard is called Cheap Wine. It came out in late 2022. It's a vibrant beat with bilingual lyrics that just make you feel good. However, Chico Curlyhead might be best known for his biggest hit, Modelo. It came out in the spring of 2021, and it now has over 2 million plays on Spotify, where he also has over 100,000 monthly listeners.
I remember when I made Modelo. I always liked that story. Why? Because that was the first time I had ever been in a real studio. I had never been in a studio. I had never stepped into a studio that was properly made, properly built. I always recorded in bedrooms. So that was the first time I ever went. First time I was in LA. And first producer that I ever worked with that was legit. And that's the first track that I ever produced from being in the studio and out there. So Modelo was a special track just because I got to experience a lot of things for the first time, and something great came out of it too.
Chico Curlyhead mixes his African roots with Latin American beats and sounds. He now lives in Atlanta, but this is something that maybe wouldn't have happened.
Chico Curlyhead was born in Panama, Central America. That's where I was raised half of my life. I was raised in Panama. Completely different language, culture, environment than America is, let's just say that. That's how Chico Curlyhead started.
As you remember from our first season, it was in this small Central American country, Panama, where reggaeton was first produced and heard, and it was around the same time that Chico Curlyhead was born. However, like so many in our country, his mom decided to migrate to the United States. Chico Curlyhead was only 10 years old and didn't exactly love the idea at first.
My mom made the decision to move out of Panama. She originally had told me it was only for like 3 months. She said we were coming to America for 3 months, and me and my brother were like, okay, sure, that's fine. Let's go to America for 3 months. What are we gonna tell our mom what to do and what not to do? You know, as a child, we just said, okay. That them 2-3 months ended up turning into 6 months. And then she's like, yeah, just a little longer. We're just gonna stay a little longer. And just time went by, and honestly, I never went back until 6 years later.
His mom chose Atlanta for various reasons, but it was this city's culture that ended up playing an essential role in his upbringing as an artist, with such an original combination of vibes and styles. It's a city well known for its contributions to music, which completely changed the game, especially when it comes to Black artists, with rappers like Outkast, Lil Jon, and Ludacris. Atlanta was recognized for decentralizing the East and West Coast dominion in the 90s hip-hop scene and adding a Southern touch to it. But currently, Atlanta is the cradle of another game-changing musical genre that plays a lot with reggaeton lately: trap. Sharing a city with legendary artists such as Migos, 21 Savage, Gucci Mane, Lil Yachty, 2 Chainz, and a long list of many other geniuses, it was impossible for him to discard these inspirations.
The first time I heard a trap song was here in Atlanta. I never forget, and it was a song called Bugatti, and I believe Future was featured on it. So I remember asking, I'm like, what is this? Like, legit, I was like, what is this kind of music? And that's the first time I ever heard a trap song. So that was a whole experience for me. And then I remember hearing Drake for the first time, and I was like, so this is nice.
However, Chico Curlyhead finds inspiration from many different sources.
I've been listening to a lot of The Kid Laroi and a lot of Afrobeats. A lot of Afrobeats from Africa, from Fireboy to Magix.
And even some other sources of inspiration that we can trace from way back when he was a kid in another country.
I was always outside in Panama every day playing, whether that was playing soccer or with friends or with my mom or family, whatever. I was always out. So I got to soak in a lot of that culture and experience of what a Panamanian would do on a day-to-day life, and the character and the expression and the music.
Imagine a little boy playing soccer in the streets of Panama, surrounded by family and friends. But not long after that, his life took a turn. The music he has done has taken him far. He sang in front of thousands in one of the biggest reggaeton festivals in the world, Coca-Cola Flow Fest in Mexico City back in 2022. At that festival, he was one of the lesser-known artists, sharing a stage with legends such as Don Omar, J Balvin, and Anuel AA. He showed great appreciation for Balvin.
And that's because of everything that he did for the culture. A lot of people forget that J Balvin is the one that really set the foots for the Latinos in America, especially, to be seen and shown. Like, I really think people forget sometimes that, yes, there's great artists now like Peso Pluma, Karol G, Bad Bunny that are highlighting the Latinos at a bigger point now. But I always remember that before any of them, the only one who was doing it was J Balvin, honestly. I have to give him all his credits, his flowers. He deserves it because he's the reason why a lot of artists are actually thriving now, how they are. It's because of his efforts and his footprints on putting Latinos very up high.
Young artists need role models to find inspiration. It's not exactly easy for an immigrant who left all of his world behind as a kid to move to a new country, to then dance the reggaeton in a country where few listen to it. And artists like J Balvin made it far. They're headlining the biggest festivals in the world. And we all know that every artist, however big or small, first started their career as an everyday fan. Like La Gata, obsessed with whatever track they could get their hands on from a specific artist. Chico Curlyhead became fixated with an artist that we talked briefly about on episode 9 of this season, someone who shared the stage with Bad Bunny at Coachella 2023.
I discovered Post Malone when he dropped White Iverson like 3 days out. So I was one of the very few who had heard it at the very, very beginning. I remember that. And ever since, I've just been a fan of him. Everybody sees where Post Malone has become now. I love Post Malone. I love that he really does whatever he wants with his music, and he's really honest in his songs. And I think that's my goal. That's one of my goals, to be as open as I can with my fans and my music.
Being open with his fans, sharing heartfelt music in 2 languages in different stages in different countries will surely take Chico Curlyhead far, far, really far. He has high hopes and ambitious plans for us all in the near future.
So right now I'm working on my next upcoming single. I have a new single coming up very soon. And I'm also working on my next upcoming project, my next EP, which is also almost there, almost done. So I'm super excited about that. A lot of music from me this year. And if you haven't already heard, don't be surprised if you do. That's all I'm gonna say, honestly.
The bar was set way high. Atlanta is a bustling scene with dozens of legendary artists still living and creating there. But it's these contributions by young Latino creators that make us excited for what's to come for the scene in the United States. Because in this country, simple twists of fate can lead to very different paths. If you are superstitious, here's a sign for you. Chico Curlyhead was very close to not fulfilling his dream, as he was obsessed with another one of his many passions, soccer. Kind of like Maluma's story. John Farish, as he was known back then, had won a college scholarship to join their soccer team, and he didn't do bad at all. However, according to a recent interview, he remembers listening to an Afrobeat tune at a friend's house, to which he started writing some lyrics. His world changed as he learned that he was also able to write music. Remember the story we told you in episode 4? Well, Daddy Yankee was also very close to becoming a professional baseball player. However, his life took a quite violent spin, and he decided to fully dedicate his life to a music career, which changed not just his, but the course of music history. Chico Curlyhead comes from one of the birthplaces of reggaeton, Panama. And then life took him to the place of rap, Atlanta. Now, we're not saying that the circumstances were the same for Chico Curlyhead than Daddy Yankee, but we want to say that it's these coincidences and these twists of fate that can really make a difference in our culture. Coincidence or fate? Up to you to make the choice. And we'll definitely be listening to more Chico Curlyhead, and hopefully more of that bilingual reggaeton from the US, making us all proud to be Latinos. This was the last narrative episode of El Flow Season 2. However, we still have a little bit more wrapped up for you. Next episode will be a full interview with another bilingual urban artist you all know and love, Snow Tha Product. Stay tuned for the final episode of El Flow Season 2 next week. The second season of El Flow was written and produced by Álvaro Céspedes and Reynold Gutierrez in partnership with iHeart's My Cultura podcast network and is hosted by me, Lilia Luciano. Edited by Carmen Graterol. Fact-checking by Samedi Aguirre. Executive producers are Carmen Graterol, Rose Reed, Isaac Lee, and Lilia Luciano. Sound design by Pachi Quiñones, Hugo Mendoza, and Gonzalo Messi. Special thanks to Verónica Hernández and Pedro Aguirre. Our executive producers at iHeart are Giselle Vances and Arlene Santana. For more My Cultura podcasts, listen to the iHeart Radio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your favorite shows.